Hello, good morning, everybody. We are back with the SAP IP Business Talks live here on LinkedIn. Um, this is a different time slot. Now it's in the morning, it's 10 o'clock. The reason is that my guest is in India, in Delhi, and it fits quite better than our typical European afternoon slot. So now it's in the morning. I hope that you are with us, and when you want to leave us a comment or you want to ask questions to my guest, I'm absolutely happy to pick that up and to integrate you and your opinion into this show. So this morning we are with Priggya Arora. It's a visit from her in my show because not because, but I was also in her show. So she is quite active on LinkedIn, and she has her own interview series, which I can only recommend from the bottom of my heart. So that is really a good show. Just she tries to explain, especially to entrepreneurs and to people outside of the IP community, to understand IP, to understand the impact, especially for entrepreneurs of IP. So this is an enormous work and important work what Priggya is doing. So first of all, hello, Priggya. Thank you very much for being with me. And I would like to hand over to you and explain us a little bit who you are, what you're doing, what is your background, and how did you came into this, let's say, strange field of very special field of IP.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex. Alex, it's been wonderful sitting here as a guest because I get rare opportunities because as you also know, most of the time I am the one interviewing people. So yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, and I would love to explain something about what I do and why I am here and how I entered into the field of intellectual property. So, hi everyone. I am Priggya, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, an engineer turned lawyer, a global IP strategist, and founder of PA Legal. In the last 6 years, I have helped more than 500 innovators with their intellectual property needs. So, this is something about what I am and what kind of work I am doing. So, to start with, how I entered into this field. So, since childhood, I was always fascinated by technology. I had been a tech buff, mostly into the field of coding and exploring things, and that's how I entered into electrical engineering. After completing that, I was one fine day. It was just an incident that I would like to share my personal story how I got associated with this field. So after completing my engineering, I was thinking about whether to apply for PSUs, whether to enter into a job, a startup, or what should I do now? Now BTech is complete, and what should I do? So one fine day, I was traveling with my father, and it was because of his court experience and his case that was there in New Delhi. So I was traveling with him from my hometown to New Delhi, and throughout it's a 4 to 5 hours journey, and in that 4 to 5 hours journey, my father was struggling with how do I explain this stuff to my lawyer. So the case was regarding construction and regarding machinery which is used in construction, and what was the impact of that machinery. So being a lawyer who had no tech background, who doesn't didn't know how machines work, and seeing my father struggling uh, with him and explaining stuff how these machine works and things like that, I asked my father, why don't engineers do law? Engineers must do law so that they are able to explain and understand the stuff better, and it will help people like you, and you don't have to struggle so much explaining what is the case about. So my father, we were unaware of the field of intellectual property at that point of time. So my father said, uh, if you think that this is lucrative, why don't you go and do law? So that's how I searched on Google what kind of law does engineers do? And that's how I got to know about the field of intellectual property, and I gave entrances, and I entered into IIT Kharagpur, which is one of the best institutes of our country. So this was my story associated with it. And now, after a period of 10 years, what has happened? I have my own law firm. I am helping innovators with their legal needs, explaining them that it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. It's just that we need to put in some efforts. And what I do along with my law firm is I host a podcast called the Priggya Arora Show, and Alex has been very kind and been my guest on the show with number of other people, where we talk about how innovation interacts with law. So I think it's very important for innovators to understand that what are their legal needs, what is the impact, and how technology interacts with law. So that is the idea about the podcast that I host. And I also do a number of educative things as well. Like I do IP trainings. Recently I have done some guest lectures with World Intellectual Property Organization for their South Asian women entrepreneurs. So I continuously do that kind of stuff, because of which I have gotten recognition from my country. I've also been uh, on Doordarshan and things like that. So that's about my journey and how I entered in the field, in this field, and what I'm doing currently.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's, I mean, that is really yeah. On the one hand, it's a fascinating story, because it's like always that parents have that great influence to us. On the other hand, it is really something which comes late in
Correct.
our journey, in our education, that we understand that these interdisciplinary fields
Yes.
are interesting, and that there lie a lot of problems, of issues, of challenges, and on the other hand, that are really the interesting fields.
Yes.
So not just saying that just being an engineer and solving engineering problems, so that on top of it there is a combination between law and engineering, and that this is
Correct.
especially a tricky field. So, and we would like to talk about entrepreneurs on the one hand and innovation on the other hand. And when I say that are two hands, I would say innovation and entrepreneurs are two different things. But
Yes.
quite often that is confused with each other. Yeah, so saying it is more or less the same. And in addition, there is this IP issue and this role of IP in this interplay between innovation and entrepreneurs. So can you help us a little bit about what is the mindset which helps entrepreneurs to deal with their innovation in respect to IP?
Absolutely, Alex. So, very rightly said. First, I'll break it down and explain what are these three things separately. Like, what is entrepreneurship, what is innovation, and how innovation interacts with IP. So, these are completely, sometimes we intermix the technology so much that we think, okay, innovators is equal to entrepreneurship, innovators is equal to patent, innovators, innovation is equal to invention. But that is not the case. So let's understand what these things are. And with the audience also, if you have some views on it, keep writing in the comments, so that we are able to discuss. So yeah, so let's start with entrepreneurship. See, there are entrepreneurs who serve local needs. We cannot deny that they are not entrepreneurs. They are entrepreneurs. And then we have entrepreneurs who are based on innovation led businesses, who are generally giving their solutions to a wider audience. And why are they able to give their solutions to a wider audience? Because they are innovating. So if we go on to entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is you are doing some business to get money and to cater the needs of other people. But there are two kinds of entrepreneurship. One we call that call as SME entrepreneurship, which is small and medium enterprises. And other is innovation led entrepreneurship, which is based on innovation. So when SME works, we loosely use this technology. That's why most of the time we are also not aware that what's happening. So when an SME works, SME can include professionals, SME can include local shop owners, SME can include small businesses. So SMA is a very wide range. We cannot ignore them. That is also uh, necessary to cater needs of local people. Then on the other side, we have large businesses, which are generally innovation driven businesses. That's why they have become very large. They started as an SME, or they started with a small problem of solving a small problem of a local need, but because the innovation was very high, they were able to capture global markets.
But
So the
what would you
impact
say,
is very high.
Priggya, what would you say to people? So sometimes they come to me, for example, they want to have a valuation of their IP, and that is a very small company. Okay,
Mhm.
on the one hand, on the other hand, they solve a huge problem, or they would like to solve a huge problem. So
Correct.
how would you call that? Because you focus on small companies should focus on small problems, bigger companies focus on big problems. So I mean, let's take OpenAI. So OpenAI worked as a very small company on a very big issue, and they made it, and now
Yes.
it is an 80 billion company. So how do you deal with that?
So, Alex, we don't have to understand this concept in the terms of small or big, because even a small enterprise has a big potential. But what happens is we need to see the part of innovation in it. For example, if we see at larger businesses, what they do is they initially burn a lot of money, they hire teams, they have a product, they build a product, and then they eventually make a business. But on the other hand, the other kind of business like SME, what I'll do is I'll open a shop today and I'll start selling. As and when the revenue comes in, I'll invest the revenue again to grow. So it's kind of a linear growth. But in innovation driven businesses, we need to burn a lot of money to innovate first, and then we bring out a product. So I think that is the kind of distinction we need to make, that what are we just launching into penetrating into the world and then probably growing linearly, or we are developing a product which has huge potential and then making money super fast.
Okay, okay. But
Yeah,
we have also situations like Uber where it takes
correct.
15 years before they make money, right? So they
Yeah,
burned a lot of money,
yeah.
especially
So,
these platform businesses that it takes a long time. But you wanted to explain us the role of IP in that game.
correct. So, see, now we understand that there is an innovation based business, and even SMEs can have innovation. It's not that SMEs do not have innovation, sometimes they have great innovation. So, what is innovation? Innovation is, I think I'll have to mention this, that I have read this wonderful definition from Ed Roberts from MIT, because that is the best definition that I could find anywhere of innovation. So innovation is the product of invention into commercialization. Unless you are making money from your invention, it is of no use. So you need to make money from your invention. So innovation is a product of invention and commercialization. Now it has two aspects. We have invention on one side, we have commercialization on other side. So we need to balance both. See, if invention is zero, innovation is zero. If commercialization is zero, innovation is zero. So we need to make an accurate balance between invention and commercialization, then only we are able to succeed. So unless that is the case, we are not going to succeed. And now when we have invention, how are invention made? Inventions are made when you protect your inventions. And how do you protect your invention? You protect your invention through intellectual property registration. So that is how the whole funnel works. That's why it's important to have IP protection. Unless you have that, your innovation level is going to be zero. And I'll give you an example of innovation.
Is that
Like,
is that really true? I don't believe that. I mean, we have a lot of innovation out there, lots of
correct.
that, which are not protected anyhow.
Yeah.
So and that is sometimes, that is especially the driving force, that it is open, okay, so
Yeah.
that others can get access to it.
Correct.
So, and I don't want to say that because you patent it, you don't give others access. I just say, is this protection of the innovation really that kind of crucial prerequisite? I mean, that is a typical patent attorney argumentation. Yeah, you
Yeah.
say, hey, when you have not patented your invention, you cannot get nowhere.
No.
I'm not that convinced that this is true. So you don't think that there are um, situations in which a patent protection might be the opposite of being the best solution?
So see, Alex, I'll again intervene here and say I'm not going to give you any patent attorney argument. What I am going to say is, you have a business, you have your assets, you have intangible assets, you have tangible assets. Assets, you have registration on it. Intangible assets, you haven't registered, and you are not even aware of the intangible assets. You are not protecting it. That is okay. That could be your strategy, it could be the best strategy, because if you are not protecting it, then you are taking measures to secure it and not tell it to people. Even if you disclose your technology, you will save some part of it. That could be in the form of processes, that could be in the form of business methods, that could be in the form of your brand positioning. How are you positioning your brand? But these are also your intangible assets. So if you're not protecting it with patents, that is absolutely correct, but at least you should be aware of your what are your intangible assets. And if you're not
Absolutely.
protecting it in patents, then what is the form that you are going to take?
I think
Are you
I think
securing the information
we
or
can
not?
really agree on that. Yeah, that
Yeah.
what you really need is a strategy,
Correct.
and that's the point. Whatever you're doing, you should have a very clear, concise, comprehensive strategy. What you
Correct.
want to do and why you're doing what you're doing, and what are your objectives. And I think that that is the cornerstone. And when there is a part of your strategy not to protect or to protect or do whatever, then it makes absolutely sense. And
Yeah.
not you and not me are the right people who criticize the strategy of an entrepreneur. The point is, do you have a strategy,
Correct.
or you just act because you don't know anything about, let's say, IP?
Correct. That's why, Alex, I also say that awareness is mandatory. If you're taking an aware action, that is completely fine. If no, not registering is your strategy, that is also fine.
Exactly. Yeah, wonderful.
Mhm.
So, uh, what would you say in terms of value over the last decade? I mean, we all see that business is changing. We see that intangibles like relationships, like what you're doing on LinkedIn, what I'm doing on LinkedIn, that is becomes more and more important to people. So, what would you say over the last years, the last decade? Would you say that intangibles became more important? And what means that kind of importantness? Yeah, so important is an easy word, but it has a deep impact. And would you say that protection becomes more important to these intangibles, and why?
Okay, Alex, wonderful. Now, I think I would ask you to share the slides.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So, uh, people on your screen, you're seeing some data, and I'm just sharing that data. I don't have any intention of, you know, uh, uh, saying that okay, you should go ahead and protect your intellectual property. Let's analyze the data together. So, if we see 1917, US Steel is the world leader, and if we see 2017, Apple is the world global leader. So, Alex, what do you think has changed since since a period of 100 years? Like, if we analyze the top countries in the world, what do you think has changed?
Yeah, obviously the companies which are now the most valuable and fastest growing companies, that are platform companies. So they run not anymore a classical pipeline business model like US Steel, also like in the late 60s, like IBM and ATT, that were companies which have a pipeline a business model. And today, Alphabet, so the Google company, also Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, they run platforms, and that
Yes,
are completely intangible business models, and
correct,
that's a cornerstone why they can become that fast, that big.
correct. And Alex, let's move to the next slide.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for sharing the insights. That is absolutely true. What we see now is tech companies growing at a very fast rate. And in this, also, if you see, there are 7 out of 10 companies which are from the field of technology. Like, if we see today's data and the world top 10 growing companies throughout the world, 7 out of 10 companies are technology companies. And let's
Yeah,
move
and
to the next.
you
Yeah.
could also argument and say, let's integrate also Berkshire, like let's integrate Visa and
Yeah.
Johnson and Johnson as pharma, and the other are financial, so that are completely intangible. That are companies which deal with intangibles. I mean, that is the fascinating fact here, that the biggest companies are companies which have a business model which runs on intangibles more or less
Correct.
purely. And this is
Correct.
the 10 years, 20 years ago, we discussed the knowledge economy. And this is what we see here. The knowledge economy is here. We have to
Yes.
deal with it.
Perfect. And like we have been speaking about intangible, let's see this data. In 1975, we had 90%. Like, if a company, 90% of the company was based on tangible, and now in 2020, only 10% of the companies are based on tangible, and 90% is based on intangible. And what happens if you carelessly, or if you say that I am unaware of intellectual property, and you do not protect your intellectual property, and you do not take measures around it? What will happen? Obviously, we need to take some measures, because 90% of our businesses is going to fail. And now, Alex, I'll ask you one more question. Like, do you live in a rented house, or do you live in a house that you own?
I'm living in a rented house.
Okay. So because you live in a rented house, what kinds of rights you have on that house?
I mean, I'm the user of the house, but I cannot
Yeah.
sell it. I just can use it.
Perfect. And your owner, the owner of the house can sell it, the owner of the house can rent it to some other person, the owner of the house can renovate it, the owner of the house can do so many things on it. In the similar fashion, if 90% on the 90% of my business, I do not have any ownership, I am just using it, but I do not have any rights on it. I cannot sell it, I cannot purchase it, I cannot make benefits out of it, I cannot do anything, because I am unaware of the ownership of what I have. So, IP or intangible properties are not to be ignored. We need to value them, and we need to protect them as well.
Yes, I mean the cornerstone is, to my opinion, what Peter Drucker said, and he said, "What you can't measure, you can't manage." So that sounds very simple, but in terms of intangibles, that's a very tricky issue.
Correct.
And we have a Kaplan and Norton, and these guys developed the balance scorecard,
Mhm.
and the logic is that I tried to implement a management, implement a strategy with my management, I have to understand the assets. And
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of these asset perspective when it comes to intangibles and especially to intellectual property. But I would say that when you don't understand your intangible infrastructure, your logic. I mean, I had yesterday a big discussion with a company representative about the situation that a supplier delivered an infringing product to this OEM,
Yeah.
and the OEM at the end had to pay for this infringement. And now the question is, how can I make sure that my supplier do not infringe, do not deliver infringing products to me? And the solution is not anyhow a contract in which is agreed I deliver without infringing third party IP, simply because I mean this is, yeah, you can write it, but the question is what is de facto done in that company. And so I recommended that they should fulfill the DIN standard 7706 or the
Mhm.
ISO 5605 to have a management in place
Hmm.
to make sure that IP is correctly dealt with. Okay, so
Hmm.
that they are able. So what you say, that they understand that this IP is there, that they understand, they identify their intangibles and potential infringements of third-party rights. Because when you don't understand your intangible situation, you don't understand your infringement potential.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you have raised a very valid point because, see, I will tell you from my experience, 1 out of 100 or entrepreneur is doing a freedom to operate search just to see whether when I'm launching a product, whether I am infringing on somebody else's intellectual property or not. And later on, what happens is they receive infringement notices, and then sometimes they need to shut down their businesses in one day. Sometimes they feel like, okay, we are getting a police raid on our factory and people will make hue and cry here, so like, why is police coming and checking our products and things like that. So I think all these issues require IP awareness and they require protection. Like, if you have developed something, why not have an ownership of it? Like, okay, it's my product, I have developed, I need to register it. Eventually we register our properties as well. So if we are aware of things, we would be able to take action. But if we are unaware of our things, it's like we are leaving everything to God. Let's see what's going to happen in a
Yeah, what will
business
happen
next day.
exactly? I like what Mohammed is writing. So he came exactly to the same point. He write in the chat that this understanding of IP has a lot to do with not infringing third party rights. I mean,
Correct.
that is really a tricky point. And the more complex technologies become, and I just mentioned here, let's say the 5G standard. So 5G has around 22,000 standard essential
Correct.
patents. Can you
Correct.
imagine that? So this is a tremendous complex standard now, and that is just a symbol, just an example how complex the technologies became. And whatever you are doing in the digital world, you are on top of a stack of technology which is down there,
Correct.
and obviously IP plays a crucial role in that. So
Yes.
one of your statements, Priggya, is that you would like to see that IP protection, IP strategy comes together with business strategy. So I
Yes.
hear that very often. Okay, so
Yes.
it's I mean, when you go to a conference, so everybody is praying that, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of a phrase, but to a certain extent it's also yeah, I mean, it's like plastic. Okay, everybody can use
Correct.
it, it's always anyhow right. But the question is, what does it really means? I mean, down to earth, how can I understand IP within the framework of a
Right.
business strategy? What would you, how would you explain that to an entrepreneur, for example?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alex, for see. I also on my podcast, every second guest who come, they'll say that I want to take the topic how IP strategy aligns with business strategy, and this topic is so widely discussed. And sometimes we feel that okay, it's the right topic to take on, but sometimes we feel okay, we are going to listen to same stuff again and again. But yeah, let's because I started with a definition from Ed Roberts. I would like to continue based on that. So, what we discussed was innovation is equal to invention into commercialization. So, invention is one part of it, and commercialization is one part of it. If we are doing invention as zero and commercialization is high, again the product is going to be zero. And if you are doing commercialization as zero, which is business model, processes, how you are going to position your brand, it is all again around commercialization. So, if that is zero, again the innovation level is going to be zero. So what I suggest, like whenever an innovator who comes up to me and he says like there are various aspects and why we feel that it's very difficult to do that, or it's a strange thing, or okay, we don't have that amount of money so we should not worry about that. But according to me, like because I'm a patent attorney, I'm going to take example from patent. Like we have systems and processes in place for doing or for aligning IP strategy with the business strategy. For example, if you have an invention and you would want to protect it because you see that it has a lot of commercial value associated with it, you can go for a provisional application or you can go for a non provisional application, and within a period of 1 year, you can decide whether you want to go to the foreign markets or not. And then again, if we, for example, file a PCT application, we get 31 months from the date of priority, which is a good 2.5 year period of time. And because we have that elongated time with us, in that time, we are able to do the market analysis and we should utilize that time. It's not that, okay, we have that time, so how what should we do, it's like, or we should just let go of that time. The time is given for a specific reason, and the reason is because you have good 2.5 years. You can analyze the market potential of your innovation, you can put your business model in place, you can put your processes in place, you can analyze what is going to be my potential in countries, you can test your product, and once that is done, then only think about investing in those countries.
So
So it
what
starts.
I, I can't agree. I'm sorry, I can't agree. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're, because I think your assumption is not really the typical case. Okay. So your assumption is that the inventor has something invented. Yeah. So in my practice, I see the opposite. The
Yeah.
inventor, okay, has nothing invented. So there
Okay.
is an idea, there is a very fuzzy um, innovation idea. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I
I would
agree.
like to do predictive maintenance, condition monitoring, and configurator. I want to optimize this or that. Yeah, but
Correct. Absolutely.
unfortunately, nothing to file, nothing to
That
nail
is
down.
absolutely fine. That is absolutely fine because
And
we are.
excuse me,
Yeah.
just the next step. So let us assume the inventor has so far nothing invented. And in addition, okay, the business model is not clear. So it is
Okay.
not clear how this guy want to make money out of this not invention.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
now what, and now I would say what we have to do is we have to bring together this yeah, the potential invention with the potential business model. And isn't that the job which has to be done first? What would you say?
I agree with it. So what I started is, once the invention is ready. But once the invention is not ready, then what are the steps to take? So for example, a person comes to us and the invention is not ready. It's just an idea. The first question I ask the person is, how are you going to earn money from this? Right? Like, how are you going to exactly build business? So
Exactly.
so if I don't ask that question, I do not have any right to tell them what you need
That
to
was my
protect
point,
and how
Priggya.
you need to
Exactly,
protect.
exactly. Because what you explained is, I have an invention, and later
Correct.
on, you build your business model, whatever. I mean, yes, maybe sometimes, but
Correct.
typically this is not the case. And this is what Amra said. He said that he don't think that the IP game starts or is about ownership. It is basically
Yes.
about market, because
Correct.
um, um, uh, in addition, I don't like this ownership perspective. To be honest,
Perfect. Yes.
because it sounds that just because you own it, it is doing something for you. Okay,
Yes.
and it is not true. You have to do something. And that means not the ownership is the point, the forbidding right character is the point. You
Correct.
are able to forbid third parties something. So now explain me, what exactly is doing this forbidding right for you? So why do you want to forbid something third parties? Okay, and
Correct.
that is a different thing from owning a house or not, because the house is given a certain usability, is given a certain usage. But this is not given in an invention. The invention has,
Yes.
and the question, what is the relationship from the invention to the innovation? So I like really when you say we have to bring that together, and the business model on the one hand, and this potential invention on the other hand.
Correct. So, Alex, absolutely correct on this. So, that's why I said that first question, any new client, any new person asking you about IP, the first question should be, how are you going to make money from your business? What are the steps that you are taking? And, you know, generally, these things are not too complex. Like, it's one posted kind of things, like you can mention it in 5 points, like this is my product, this is the business model, this is the market, and this is how I'm going to link everything. And once that is there, then only we can bring in IP strategy, because protection without that is unnecessary. It's like we are just thinking in the air that we are having something, ultimately we are not having something. So the first step should be your business model, and that is absolutely acceptable, and then only you should approach a patent attorney. I think over the years it has also become a number game, which I don't agree with. Like, if a company owns these many patents, that is going to be the largest company. That is not true. Maybe there is one patent which is going to give you millions of dollars, and other patents which are of zero value. So I will always suggest that go to that one patent, and unless you have that in place, don't file any intellectual property. That is utter, if I can use the word, it's utter nonsense to just stick in a lot of certificates saying that okay, we have patent registration certificate from this, that, and so many places. No, first is your business. First is why we are registering IP. We are registering IP to make money, because that is the end goal of a business as well, that we
Yeah,
need
but
to
that
serve
leads us,
a.
again to the question, um, uh, why exactly is a forbidding right helpful for you? Yeah.
So
So it is the cornerstone that you are able to forbid somebody something. And the
correct,
question is, why do you want that? What is your intention? Why you want that kind of exclusivity? And this is typically not explained by the technology.
correct,
The technology explains you nothing. That does not explain you the business model. I mean, one of my classic example is you have this photocopying process, the so-called Xerox process, and then
Xerox.
we have completely different business models. The one business model is selling, or no, not selling, giving big copy machines to companies and make and just get the money per use. So you pay per use
Yeah.
for these copy machines, and you can make the opposite and make very cheap copiers like the Japanese copiers, and you sell it with a razor blade business model, with the compatibility of your toner and your ink. So the Xerox process is in both cases the same,
Yeah.
but it doesn't help anyhow to patent the Xerox process. So what you need on the one hand is have maintaining your big machines. On the other hand, you need compatibility. So what I want to explain is the technology does not explain the business model. And
Correct.
that means exactly what you say. What you really need is an understanding of the business and what you really want to forbid third parties. And this is not done with ownership. This is done with a forbidding right. And the question
Correct.
is, what gives you the exclusivity at the end? What makes your business running? I mean, that is exactly what you explain, and I think that is a so important message to the entrepreneurs to show that the investment in an IP is an investment in the business model when
Correct.
you understand the functionality right.
Absolutely, Alex. And I think another side of it is also competitive advantage. Because, for example, if you have being a say pharma company, someone has spent $20 million in getting the product right. I think that is their right to build a competitive advantage and to gain, at least recover all the money they have spent on R&Ds, and so that people also know how much time and effort gets done in making one medicine. It's not like researchers are going to make it in one day. So I feel market is one point, business model is one side of it, which is given a top priority, but other side is also building a high competitive barriers for the competitors.
I mean, what is discussed now in the chat, and I think that's an important issue. So
Mhm.
why should you file? Why should you spend your money for IP when you cannot enforce it? So what is your simply because of a limitation of resources? So what is your recommendation in that case?
See, enforcement also, what that is my personal opinion. Like sometimes what happens is the IP is not registered correctly, or for example, if we take example of patents, then the innovation lies in one small aspect of it, and it is the one small aspect is copied with some of the other aspects, so we are not able to prove infringement. So at the time of drafting, or I'll say initial stages of when you're planning to file IP, at that point you need to be very very careful that what are you protecting. Sometimes you don't need a patent, your look and feel of the product is very unique. For example, water bottles or fancy bottles of perfumes, the look and feel of a perfume is so different from others that you need to protect its design so that you are able to stop others from manufacturing the same bottles. And yeah, and in terms of copyright infringements, we have takedown notices which get uh, which get processed very very fast. So the government is also trying to faster the process, but we need to take our steps as well. We cannot blame it on the government, that government is not taking any action so we can't do it. It's like it goes hand in hand, that one on one side we are developing and on the other side the government is also developing.
Okay, I understand. I see. I mean, Bridget, unfortunately, we're running out of time. So it's a very fascinating discussion, and I would say when you have not any rights on your invention, you will struggle also with any kind of enforcement later on.
Correct.
And so it's a crucial prerequisite to play the IP game. And as we said in the early minutes, it is important to play the game, however you play it, but ignoring it won't help you anyhow. So thank you very much for your time. Priggya, we will have a after show discussion on LinkedIn, so it would be wonderful when you can stay there and discuss. So we have here also an open innovation aspect which comes up and which came up here in the chat. So it would be wonderful when we can discuss that later on LinkedIn with the audience. Thank you very much for coming into the show, and have a nice day in Delhi. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you, everybody. Pleasure being